Hello, hello, I'm Kats, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is going to be the latest iteration of the Deck of Fate, specifically the Adventure Deck of Fate, the third one for this year. And for once, it is actually a, relatively speaking, good deal because it is champion training, but there is of course also the bulk of the lion's share of the points, pun intended, for the upcoming Oz event, summoning Soulstones. You can pull some Soulstones and flip a lot of cards into the deck. Now for anyone who's unfamiliar with the Decks of Fate, there are 40 cards in the deck, and the breakdown for rarity is as follows: 14 commons, 14 rares, and then 12 epic cards. And because it's an adventure Deck of Fate, that always means that there is some gear up for grabs, and in this case it's a lot of accessories, specifically deflection accessories, which are a lot more useful after the buff to the deflection set, and they're a lot harder to, well, basically impossible to come by unless you're finishing regularly in Platinum Arena, which I know I definitely don't because of the timing of the window, but also just because of the difficulty, because people are crazy good in that sense. But anyways, so there's lots of good stuff here, of course, and I would say majority of the mythical stuff is probably going to be under the epic cards. A lot of the legendary stuff is going to be under the rare cards, and then a lot of the epic stuff is going to be under the common cards. So that's my guess, having not flipped any cards in the deck. So one of the gimmicks of Decks of Fate are that if you get 3 of a kind in a row, then you can roll on these respective tables to get even more juicy rewards. And the good news is this is a pinned rarity Deck of Fate, meaning that you can preserve a streak of rare or epics, which could guarantee you getting one of these 2 streaks. It is typically always in your best interest to override a potential rare streak with an epic streak, just because, especially in this particular case, there are 12 epic cards, meaning that you are guaranteed, if you flip every card in the deck, of course, you're guaranteed to get 4 streaks of 3 when it comes to epic. So you do most certainly want to override any and all rare ones with the epic, just because you're rolling on the better table to get potentially better rewards. Now, as we talked about, getting the points is going to be a combination of champion training alongside a soul rush. And the good news is, because there is of course no champion or guaranteed anything else alongside of this, that means that we get the higher rates in terms of the points per soulstone. So the 90% nerf of flowers, I like to call it, relative to the peak rates that we've ever seen, those being 100 for immortal, 1,000 for an immortal, and then 5,000 for an eternal. So we are 90% of that, i.e. 90 for an immortal, 900 for an immortal, and 4,500 for an eternal. Then of course you get a decent amount of points for running the campaign or just leveling champions in general. So hopping over to the spreadsheet, which you can take a look at in more detail in the link in the description box down below, note that we are in the Deck of Fate calculator tab, but the main takeaway here is that if you're focusing on the soulstone aspect, then if you wanted to flip every card in the deck, then it would take you 445 mortals, 45 immortals, and then 9 eternals each individually. But of course, from a very practical standpoint, I would recommend that you focus on champion training, at least initially, just to get as many points from that as you can. Make some 5-star chickens, make some 6-star champions, whatever you got to do. If your goal is to flip a decent amount of cards in the deck, go for that. And then once you're done champion training over the course of the 4 days, that's how long the event is, then you can switch over and pull Soulstones. Or if you just have a bunch of immortals or the soul coins to convert into immortals, then you could just rip through them, because there is of course boosted rates going on in the Altar of Souls as well for 5 and 6-star souls, specifically only from the immortal soulstones. So yeah, with that said, you can basically understand what my plan is going into this. I thought about not doing it, but just because I've been doing a lot of champion training recently and I didn't really want to do another wave of it. But then I kind of looked once again at the rewards and I was like, well, I'm basically never going to finish plat, and this is a relatively obtainable way to get these accessories compared to the last time they did this, which is where it was like Soulstones and then like Dungeon Divers, which you could barely get any points for, practically speaking, because it was basically just Soulstones only for the sake of the gear, which was just a bad trade in my opinion. But champion training is just really easy. You kind of just run campaign a bunch of times and you level up stuff, and at the worst case, you build up a bunch of chickens that you're going to use in the future, or you max out a champion that is relatively niche but still useful in your account. Either way, it's kind of a win-win. You're developing your account, so it's hard to go against champion training when the opportunity to get good rewards is there. Now, that being said, I do not intend to do the entirety of this via champion training. That would be a ridiculous amount of energy and time spent. Moreover, I think mathematically it would be like if I made 4 6-star champions from scratch, building up all the chickens from the tier 1s all the way up to the tier 5s, and then feeding them into the tier 6 or into the rank 6 champion. Yeah, not going to do that. But I might, make 5 or 6 5-star chickens over the course of the next few days, and then hopefully that will get me like half-ish way, and then I basically just have to pull 20-ish immortals to get that, get the rest of it done. That's kind of where ballpark what I'm aiming for, give or take. But yeah, that is my plan. And in terms of a recommendation, I basically recommend the same thing what I kind of said earlier, where it's like focus on champion training first, get as much of that done as you possibly can, and then switch over to pull Soulstones if you really feel like it, and you again want to take advantage of the boosted rates when it comes to the Immortal Soulstones here in the Altar of Souls. So in my particular case, you can see that I'm kind of stacked to the 9s here when it comes to Soulstones, at least in terms of the coins themselves. So we have 68, kind of a backlog there in terms of that I can convert into stones as needed, but I also have 14 just sitting and waiting. And of course I do have 550 Immortals if I really wanted to use those, but because they're not boosted rates, I'd rather focus on the Immortals and just see what I can get in terms of that. And yeah, I recently just bought the 4-star soul from my Bayek from the Soul Merchant. And so basically that was like, you know, that's the highest amount of Immortal Soul coins I would need to convert into Essence. And so right now I'm kind of in a good spot where if I can pull some Soulstones, get someone from the wish list, this is my wish list at the moment. Ideally, you know, Bayek would be a 5-star or 6-star, but if I could get some of the other two or one of the other two to 4-star plus, then I could just save. Well, effectively, I will have used my Immortal Soulstones instead of converting them into coins and waiting 2 to 3 months, waiting for the merchant to refresh. I could just get the soul now, and then I'll have to spend a bunch of soul coins over time. So it could be worth it. We'll just have to see what we'll get from our summons. So yeah, this deck of 8 is pretty straightforward. You know, if you're really interested in doing it, then champion training plus Soulstones is the way to go. And if you want to save all your resources for the upcoming fusion and or future guaranteed events, because of course this is a new, you know, IP-ish collaboration with the Wizard of Oz coming, there's probably going to be some guaranteed champions, meaning that there's probably going to be at least one deck of fate, which is going to have one of the champions guaranteed. And that's probably going to be Soulstones again. So just keep that in mind if you do care about either the Scarecrow or the Tin Man, you're really interested in having them on your account. One of them is most likely going to be from a deck of fate that's going to require Soulstones in the next 2 to 3 months or so. So if you want to hoard your Soulstones for that, that might be a better investment than a one-off deck of fate here to get some deflection accessories that you may or may not have a bunch of value in. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what your plan is relative to this adventure deck of fate. I'm very curious to know how you guys are going to be approaching this one, if at all. And of course, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. Really just help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.